Welcome back, Tigercast fans. It is the end of season player review time, and we've got Grok in the house. And tonight we are looking at Dion Prestia, who wears the number 3, because we are doing this in numerical order. So tonight's all about just chatting about Dion Prestia's season, and then we'll give him a ranking, the old schoolyard ranking. But Dion, Grok, I think, if I'm being totally honest, I think first and foremost, a lot of us, probably including us, owe maybe a bit of an apology because we all thought he was retiring mid-year, based on, I suppose, the pub test and things that we had seen and heard. But he and the club obviously made the call to keep playing, and I think it proved to be a really good decision. And I'm really glad on the back of that he's going to be playing again next year.
Yeah, I'll put my hand up and say that I got that one wrong. Obviously, I'd heard that he was likely to pull the pin prior to the dream time at the G game, and it was nice enough of Kiwi Tiger to give us a bit of a clip on Dion when he signed the extension, saying that a few of us got it wrong. But yeah, I think at that point prior to the bye, I definitely think there's definitely some credence to him retiring, obviously with the injuries and the niggles that he had. But then, yeah, after the bye with the extended break, obviously he had the 12 games, and just like Lazarus, he rose and captured a bit of form that we thought maybe he'd lost a little while ago, and yeah, ended up having a really, really good back half of the year.
He did, and again, I think some credit goes to the fitness staff. I know he obviously missed the first half of the year, but the fact we were then able to keep him on the park for the remainder of the year with zero hiccups, there onwards, was a really, really good sign for both him and the club. And it just allowed him to get that continuity back into his game that he just hasn't had for the last few years, even though it was only 12 games. I think if you were to say to all Richmond supporters he'll play 12 straight, a lot of us maybe wouldn't have believed it. But to get 12 straight, and they were quality games too. Like, I know we didn't get wins, but he was still getting some pretty good numbers in the midfield. Even his last game of the year against Geelong, I think it was 30 disposals and 2 goals. Like, he's still maybe obviously lost a yard of pace because of age and whatnot, but his footy brain is still through the roof. Like, he's quick of mind, which often allows him to get into better positions and make better decisions that compensate maybe the lack of speed he's got these days.
Yeah, he was never the quickest player, even during his peak. But as you mentioned, his decision-making and his ability to see the play one step ahead, whether the opposition has the ball or we do, set him apart. And I think credit does have to go to the conditioning again, Serple and everything. The fact that Dion shouldered so much of the midfield work along with Hopper and Taranto with minimal rest, and the fact that he managed to get 12 games in a row without, the D Prestia laid out meme, week in, week out. The fact that he managed to get such a large amount of continuity into his game and into his legs is massive for someone that, for a player like Dion, who has had that real interrupted seasons over the past 3 or 4 years. So, yeah, absolutely fantastic for Dion. And his form, the more he played this year, the better off he got. And, that game against Geelong, I thought, was one of the better games he's played probably since the 2020 season. So, it was. I think it was just nice to see him get some reward for his work rate, because Dion, with his transition running, his two-way running, he's always going to find himself either getting the ball or getting forward or even tackling. So he's one of these players with the way that he plays and slots in. He's always going to be involved no matter what. I'm just glad to see him being able to get some footy into his legs.
Yeah, and even though we definitely all agree that his footy that he did play was really good this year, I've gone a B, and it's only because he didn't play another 8 or 9 games to do it for a whole year, and it would have probably bumped him up to an A, to be honest. But the B is probably more to do with that he wasn't there at the start of the year, which, it is what it is. But the level of performance was really, really good. And I'm like you, I'm just glad that it's reward for effort and the faith he's shown in the club to get him right and his body to get right as well. So him signing on for another year, I guess it probably did catch a few people by surprise, if we're being honest. But I don't mind the rationale behind it, because as much as like as supporters, right, all we want to see and all we talk about is the youth and the development and the Cubs coming through and wanting to play midfield, which is fine. But the reality is that even your Lawlers, your Hottons, Smiley, whenever he's ready, none of these kids are going to be ready to play 70%, 80% game time at that level like what Dion's doing. It just won't happen. We even see Kay McAuliffe. He's like obviously a few years ahead of those guys in terms of fitness and preseason. And even he was only operating off about 65 to 75% game time. So there's a long way to go before they catch up. So are you happy as well with the year extension, and how do you see that playing out in the type of role he can play for the club in 2026?
Yeah, I definitely think I'm happy with it. Again, he's going to be someone who is going to be teaching, Smiley about the defensive aspects, the two-way running. He's going to be helping Lawler. Obviously, the names you mentioned, Lawler, Houghton, Smiley, McAuliffe. This is one of the biggest reasons why I really want us to keep Thompson Dow, because he's the closest player that we have to the role that Dion does play as that two-way runner in the side. So I think we'll be losing out if we don't give Dow a contract next year. But yeah, I think there's definitely merit in Dion going around again next year. I'd be disappointed if he plays more than 20 games, if that makes sense. As much as we want Dion out there, if he plays more than 20 games, while it might be a bit of a positive that his body's held up, I think playing more than 20 is taking away some actual development time for some of the younger mids, especially someone like McAuliffe, who's been on the list a few years now and has been performing pretty well at VFL level and biding his time. I think for me, Dion should play all Melbourne games. Any sort of games in Perth or Queensland, just leave him. Don't take him along. Give him a rest. But yeah, I do like the fact that he's gone on, and yeah, biggest surprise. If we had said that at buy round that he was going around, I think there'd be a lot of eyebrows raised. But I don't think anyone can question the decision now.
No, form warrants it too. And I agree. It's going to be really fascinating to see how he handled the transition period with his role, and then eventually Lynch's role, and eventually obviously Broad's in his last year, and Floston, is coming up soon. So there's going to be some points in time where, the passing of the guard has to happen. But for the short term, I think it was absolutely the right call to keep him on board. And just to highlight how much of an impact he had in the 12 games that he played, he was still able to finish in the top 5 for clearances for the club. He was still able to finish 4th for the club for centre clearances and 5th for stoppage clearances. So it just sort of goes to show he's still got the work rate. He's still got the ability to read the contest and get the ball out. And whilst he's still doing that, like these other kids aren't going to be doing those numbers. Even if they had the same opportunity, I cannot see a world in which they would yet match those numbers. So for me, I agree, is still a much viable and much needed option to roll through there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at those numbers, I'm sure he would have been up there, probably our leader in terms of tackles per game average as well, just with the way that he plays. So I think he's the perfect midfielder and also player to come along and take Sam Lawler under his wing, who we know tackles hard and works pretty hard defensively as well, and can win clearances. Thompson Dow, Kane McAuliffe. I think that's going to be his biggest role next year, is not what he can contribute on field, which we know if he can play his game, he's at least an A quality player, but more so what he can do off field with the younger mid brigade coming through, because we're going to have Hopper and Taranto, fingers crossed, obviously, for another 4 or 5 years. He's going to be the one that needs to step up and impart the knowledge into the younger boys, for him to replace him. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what actually his role is and how many games he plays next year.
The other important stat that he leads the way in is pressure acts. He averages 19.8 per game, which is a team high, with Tim Taranto second and Seth Campbell third. So I guess that's one of those stats that while you're still putting out that type of output, you can't dislodge them, right? Pressure acts are so vital in games to cause turnovers and things like that. And I know CB and EJ often talk about this, but the bit of footage or the video the club released when Dion was mic'd up on the ground and just hearing his leadership, his direction and things like that, that's where the value is in this 1 year contract.
Yeah, he's probably quicker than Hopper, maybe Taranto. So he's the one often when the ball does get on the outside for the opposition, he's usually the one that's pressuring and harassing, just the way that he positions it in the defensive contest. So, yeah, he is going to be a pretty hard player to replace, much like Koch was with his defensive work rate, which is why I think it's important that we do get the midfield mix right next year, so we can prepare for when Dion isn't there. So, yeah, I do think a B grading for Dion is fair. Obviously, if we talk about it in terms of 2025 as a whole, but of the games that he played, definitely an A.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fair call. It's a fair call. Even like next year, you wouldn't even be against at various times seeing a midfield of Dion, Lawler, Houghton. Like, let him. I was going to say parent. That's not the right word, but let him guide and coach them as a trio, not for the whole game because that could blow up for us. But I think there'll be a few times we hopefully see some different things like that. And yeah, credit to Dion, credit to the club for getting him through the year the way they did. And yeah, more of those games, please, because it was at a really good standard and it was still positive output and impact for us. And I think the B could quite comfortably turn into an A next year if he's playing more football. So I'd have no reservations there. So well done on a great 2025, Dion.